Liebe Zuschauer der Stiftung für Familienwerte, danke, dass Sie uns heute begleiten. Mein Name ist Andrea Heck und ich habe heute die große Freude, Dr. Ted Baehr zu interviewen. Ted Baehr ist in New York geboren und er ist der Gründer von Movieguide. Er ist ein Medienkritiker und Autor von mehreren Büchern, die sich mit dem Thema Kommunikation und Werte widmen. Dear Mr. Dr. Baehr, it is a pleasure for us to interview you today. Your great experience in the world of media over several years, and especially for your experience as a family man and grandfather, are very important to us. Thank you for taking the time to answer this short.
Well, I love it. And it's nice to be interviewed by such lovely people, and especially because you're kind enough to give me the questions in English. So that's really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ich werde die Fragen auf Deutsch stellen für unsere Zuschauer und sie werden parallel übersetzt von Herrn Heck. Also, lass uns beginnen. Let us start.
Okay.
Lieber Dr. Baehr, seit Jahren beschäftigen Sie sich mit dem Thema Medien. Ihre Eltern waren beide ganz bekannte Schauspieler und Sie sind mitten in der Hollywood-Welt groß geworden. Nun sind Sie selber Vater und Großvater. Wie wichtig ist für Sie die Rolle des Vaters innerhalb der Familie und wie hat sich Ihrer Meinung nach das Bild des Vaters in der Medienwelt in den letzten Jahrzehnten verändert?
Dear Ted, you have been an expert in the film industry for many years. Your parents were both well-known actors and you grew up in Hollywood. And now you're a father and a grandfather. So we would like to know, how important is the role of the father within the family to you? And how do you think the image of this role in the media world has changed in recent decades?
You know, I actually have been the head of two departments, one at City University of New York, which is about 210,000 students, and one at Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley. And all the research shows that fathers are extremely important. And if you look at the recent shootings, almost all the shooters have not had fathers.
Yeah.
So it creates a tremendous problem in people with insecurities. And so the influence on those people are usually, and you can start translating anytime, but usually the influence is lack of father, psychological self-esteem, they feel they're not good enough. The media telling them that guns will help level the playing field because almost every hero in the media uses guns. All the heroes, the good guys, use guns, and they kill a lot of bad guys, but they never get killed. So all of those things are telling insecure kids without fathers that they can be more secure by going out and doing bad things.
Ja, sagt, ich bin seit vielen Jahren in der Branche und habe an einigen renommierten Universitäten unterrichtet, zum Beispiel in New York oder die Universität Berkeley. Und meine Studien haben alle ergeben, dass die Vaterrolle sehr, sehr wichtig ist für das Aufwachsen von Kindern und jungen Männern. Und es gibt einige Faktoren, die in der Hollywood-Branche negative Einflüsse haben können. Es gibt mehrere Zusammenhänge zwischen Schießereien in Schulen und dem Mangel dieser Vaterfigur. Und in der Medienwelt hat sich da einiges in den letzten Jahrzehnten verändert.
Usually, when I was head of the department at Berkeley at the early 2000s, there were over 500,000 studies on the influence of the media.
Sagt, normalerweise, als Professor war, gab es über 500.000 Studien zu diesem Thema.
So research shows how children are affected at each stage of their development, how they're impacted by the media, why they're impacted, what they're susceptible to do, and how they'll react.
Und Studien verfolgen, inwiefern die Medien diesen Einfluss haben auf Kinder, was genau der Einfluss ist und wie Kinder darauf reagieren.
good summary. So
Thank you.
some children will be influenced by alcohol. They
Manche
see,
Kinder sind beeinflusst durch Alkohol.
yes. Some children will be influenced by sex.
Auch Sex ist ein starker Einfluss für viele Kinder.
That's about 30%.
Und das sind 30%.
Not all. The people that are influenced get addicted. The people that aren't influenced say this doesn't have any influence.
Die Kinder, die beeinflusst werden, werden oft süchtig, während die nicht beeinflusst werden, sehr oft sagen, es hat gar keinen Einfluss auf sie.
About 12% or 11% are influenced by violence. So 78% don't think that violence has any influence.
Und 12% werden beeinflusst durch Gewalt in den Medien und die restlichen 78%,
I should have said 88%. Forgive me. I was a little tired.
80% sagen, dass dies gar keinen Einfluss hat.
Yeah.
Also diese Zahlen sind dann Zahlen aus den USA natürlich, ne? Wenn du ihn fragst.
And those are questions that have been derived within the US population. Is that correct?
Well, a lot of universities do studies on the influence of media on different areas of life. Sex, violence, cigarette smoking, whatever it happens to be. The reason that these universities do studies on the influence is because they can't afford the equipment. This is my summary. They can't afford the equipment to make movies. So instead of making movies, they study movies.
Genau, das heißt, viele dieser Universitäten gehen auf Filme ein, die es schon gibt. Das liegt vor allem daran, dass es sehr teuer ist, Filme zu machen. Und daher ist es einfacher, Filme zu studieren. And this is referring to Hollywood movies.
Hollywood movies. And every couple of days, because I'm a member of academia, an academic website, I get a notice that I'm being quoted in some academic course or journal on media literacy and media wisdom. So a lot of my work is quoted in academia.
Und sagt, dass tatsächlich alle paar Tage benachrichtigt wird, dass andere Akademiker wie selber ihn zitieren in den eigenen Werken. Das heißt eben, dass diese Studien sehr relevant sind.
Yes.
Ganz, ganz wichtig. Ich denke, das ist großartig, dass man hört, dass auch dass etwas geschieht in Hollywood und dass es wichtig ist, eine Influenz zu nehmen an diese Filmindustrie.
Yeah, she said that she thinks it's a fantastic thing that this is studied and that it is very important to examine the film industry and perhaps even scrutinize it, and that this is very valuable work.
The most important is what you're doing. We need to reach parents, mothers and fathers, with the information that this is a problem so that they can start teaching their children to be media wise. Now, this isn't the only problem. There's problems of fathers, there's problems of housing, there's also economics, but it's one of the big problems. So we need to get the word out. The academics understand it, but we need to get the word out to families so families can understand the problem and what they can do to solve the problem.
Ja, sagt, dass die wichtigste Arbeit ist nicht einmal die akademische Zwingung, sondern eher diese Ergebnisse zu teilen. Das heißt, die Stiftung oder vor allem Familien und Eltern sollten diese Botschaften oder dieses Wissen weitergeben, sodass es eine wahre Veränderung gibt.
Also das ist ganz wichtig und Sie haben jetzt gerade etwas Großartiges gesagt, dass es ganz fundamental ist, dass die Familien zu Hause sich um die Kinder bemühen, kümmern, dass diese Botschaft weitergegeben wird. Wie wichtig ist die Rolle der Großeltern heutzutage? Und wie werden sie in den Filmen dargestellt? Es ist da ein positiver Trend zu erkennen, zeigt man zum Beispiel gewisse Familienwerte oder Eigenschaften von Großeltern. Ich denke, Großeltern können in dieser Zeit große Vorbilder werden und die sollten auch sein. Was halten Sie davon?
Yeah, so it's very important the work you do, and a specific emphasis that we would be interested in is learning more about the role of grandparents. So how they are portrayed in movies, if perhaps there is a positive trend, or how that might have changed. What is the depiction of grandparents and the significance of that in movies?
For most big movies, Walt Disney and Warner Brothers and Columbia and Sony and Universal, the biggest audience for movies is people under 30. That's our big audience for Movieguide.
Für die meisten großen Filme von den großen Filmstudios ist die Kernzielgruppe unter 30.
And the biggest audience is 12 to 24.
Und davon ist der größte Teil zwischen 12 und 24 Jahre alt.
So what Hollywood does, just to reach that audience, not because they're intentionally being mean, is the 12-year-old is smarter than the parent. Helps the parent solve the problem. Often clueless, but the 12-year-old or 14-year-old is smarter, cleverer, and becomes the hero, whether it's movies like Spy Kids or even Avengers or whatever else. The young Spider-Man becomes smarter than the other people.
Und genau weil diese Zielgruppe so jung ist, zwischen 12 und 24, fokussieren sich die Filme auf junge Leute. Das heißt, 12-Jährige sind meistens die Schlaueren in den Filmen. Also zum Beispiel im Spider-Man-Film ist der kleine Junge der Held im Gegensatz zu den Älteren. Das ist quasi eine Taktik in den Filmen, um die Zielgruppe zu erreichen.
It's to reach an audience who's going to pay money. So there's another version of a movie called Father of the Bride coming out. And again, the father of the bride is clueless.
Yeah.
He's foolish. He's funny. He's funny because he doesn't want to give up his daughter. His daughter is marrying somebody he doesn't like, and he's got to be taught the lesson. Well, this is not what makes families work.
Ja, und interessanterweise, also es gibt ein Beispiel von einem Film, Father of a Bridesmaid, und der wird neu gemacht. Und dort ist der Vater der am wenigsten Ahnung hat. Der ist lustig, aber vielleicht nicht so clever. Und so funktionieren Familien tatsächlich nicht. Das heißt, es wird verzerrt dargestellt in Filmen.
So we try to help Hollywood understand that this is a serious issue, but the big money making is the people. Well, if you buy a ticket to a good movie, which supports fathers, that'll do better, like Blue Miracle or whatever. I'm just quoting a movie title. If you buy a ticket to a bad movie, that'll do better. So the key, the most important person is the audience. It's the people that are coming to your site, the families. If the families can help their children understand why it's important to choose the good, why it's important to respect their father and their mother and their grandfather, if they can teach them those values and the reason that God thinks they're important, they can change the world.
Und genau deswegen ist unsere Arbeit nicht die wichtigste, sondern die innerhalb der Familien. Das heißt, nur wenn Familien daran arbeiten, diese Wahrnehmung zu verändern in jungen Leuten, nur dann können die Konsumenten, also die jungen Leute, eine Veränderung bewirken. Und das macht die Arbeit eben eine, die die nicht nur eine bestimmte Gruppe betrifft, sondern das weite Spektrum der Familien.
Absolutely.
So what we try to teach people is to ask the right questions, like, who is the hero? If it's a teenage Spider-Man, you know, what is his problems? He's first place, he's in love with Mary Jane and doesn't know how to, and all of that. But in real life, who is the person who solves the problem? The mother, the father. In real life, so you have to answer, who is the hero and what does this reflect on life? And, you know, we love to have these characters. I'm not against these characters, but we need to teach them who is the hero, who is the villain, how is the church portrayed, how is God portrayed, how are parents portrayed? All of these questions we have to start asking about what we're watching.
Und genau deswegen kommt es darauf an, zu reflektieren und die richtigen Fragen zu stellen bei den Filmen. Das heißt, die erste Frage ist, wer ist eigentlich der Held in dem Film? Sollte das so sein? Die zweite Frage ist dann, oder beziehungsweise die weiteren Fragen können sein, wie wird Gott dargestellt? Wie werden verschiedene Dinge dargestellt im Vergleich zum echten Leben? Das heißt, es geht um Reflexion mit der Realität.
Ja, also gerade wenn wir über das Thema Reflexion sprechen, die Eltern haben das zu Hause gar nicht so einfach. Wenn wir sehen, dann Netflix und Co., dann haben mehrere Familien Schwierigkeiten, dann das zu kontrollieren, was die Kinder sehen. Erzählen Sie uns bitte von Ihrem Projekt Movieguide. Wie ist da die Entwicklung und welche Ziele verfolgen Sie damit?
Speaking of asking the right questions and perhaps the difficulties in determining what is right and wrong within movies and within what's offered, please tell us a bit more about the Movieguide project. What is it? How is it perhaps developing? And what is the perception of it? And where do you aim to take it?
Well, number one, Movieguide has grown to be very big in America. It's 46 million people. We don't tell people to go or not go. We tell them this is what's in it. We look at each movie in terms of 150 criteria that came out of all these professors that I worked with at the City University of New York.
Also der Movieguide ist stark am Wachsen. Wir sagen nicht den Leuten, wo sie hingehen sollen, wo sie nicht hingehen sollen, sondern wir geben ihnen über 100 Kriterien, um zu entscheiden.
We want people to develop discernment. So to get them to develop discernment, we say, this is all the different elements. Now you be the judge, because we want them to learn to make wise decisions. You see what's in it. You make wise decisions. It's like picking a stock or whatever. You've got to look at it. You've got to analyze it. You've got to say, is this company got the right criteria that I can invest in? Whatever you're doing, you've got to ask the right questions. So we just teach you the right questions to ask and help your children ask them so that they become wise in saying, oh, I don't want to see a hero who kills people. I don't want to see a hero who takes advantage of young children or women or whatever else. And they've got to come to that decision. If you keep telling them what to do, well, as soon as they leave home, they're going to give up on you. You've got to teach them why they should do the right thing.
Ja, wir geben den Leuten eher die Mittel, selber zu erschließen, was gut und was schlecht in diesem Film ist, was sie sich anschauen sollten, was sie sich nicht anschauen sollten. Das heißt, wir glauben nicht daran, Leuten einfach zu sagen, das ist gut, das ist nicht gut, denn genau das ist nicht effektiv. Wir versuchen den Leuten die Mittel zu geben, das selber zu entscheiden, selber differenzieren zu können. Und das ist die Zielsetzung hinter diesem Projekt.
Ja, das ist wertvoll, dass wir als Eltern diese Möglichkeit bekommen, eine gute Plattform zu haben, wo gute Filme zu sehen sind. Jetzt komme ich zu der nächsten Frage. Der letzte Ansprache von Papst Franziskus. Er hat über die Gefahren gesprochen, denen die Kinder in den Medien ausgesetzt sind, darunter besonders die Pornographie. Was meinen Sie dazu? Wie sehen Sie diese erschreckende Entwicklung zurzeit und ja, welche Gegenmittel können Sie uns da raten?
Yeah, so speaking of deciding between, I guess, what's right and wrong within film, the Pope recently discussed the potential dangers of pornography. And I would be curious to learn more about your stance on it, what you think the effect of pornography is on children today, and what perhaps you could advise parents as to how to prevent prevent exposure to their children of pornography.
Well, number one, the Pope is right. Number two, children, it depends upon their propensity, what they're attracted to. You know, I have 15 grandchildren, and one of my little boys likes to go out and play ball and do things out loud. And he also once in a while likes to hit his sisters. So he's not, and I had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. One of them would hit, one of them would lie, one of them would deny, and one of them would get hit and whine. So every child has a different propensity. If their propensity, to deal with that, you've got to say, okay, it's like Alcoholics Anonymous. You've got a propensity to drink too much. Now you've got to recognize that in order to deal with it. If your propensity, and there are a lot of studies, and I can show you the studies if we ever have time, from Oxford, they did beautiful studies of brain scans for people on pornography, people who are attracted to it. It's like a plug-in drug. I hope you can summarize this. If heroin is up here on the scale of addiction, pornography is next, you know, and then you go down and you get to smoking down here. So it's very high on the addiction for the people who have that propensity, not for everybody. Mm-hmm. And you make a mistake if you say it's everybody, because then a lot of people are going to say, no, it doesn't influence me. If you say everybody's affected by violence, no. And what you're doing is creating a negative reaction from other people. You've got to know who it influences, how it influences, and help them to be freed from that addiction, whatever the addiction is.
Ja, also zum Ersten hat der Papst recht. Zum Zweiten ist das Thema relativ komplex. Das heißt, was man dagegen tun kann, Schritt 1 ist erfahren, wer hat die Veranlagung dazu, überhaupt daran Interesse zu haben, Pornografie zu schauen. Nicht jedes Kind ist da gleich. Manche Kinder spielen gern draußen und ärgern ihre Geschwister und manche tun es nicht und manche lügen, wenn sie gefragt werden und manche eben nicht. Das heißt, das Wichtigste ist im ersten Schritt zu erfahren, wer ist dafür anfällig, und zweitens muss man sich im Klaren sein, dass es sich um eine Sucht handelt. Das heißt, wenn man eine Skala nimmt von Suchtstärke und hier oben ist Heroin, ist knapp darunter die Pornografie und etwas weiter unter und etwas weiter unten das Rauchen. Das heißt, man muss feststellen, wer ist anfällig, und dann die Leute von dieser Sucht befreien. Es handelt sich um eine Sucht.
Genau. Es hat sich ja massiv geändert, der Alter, in dem die Kinder Kontakt damit haben. Sind da noch zusätzliche Tipps für Eltern, um das zu vermeiden, dass die Kinder dann geschützter sind?
Right. So the age at which children are exposed to pornography has obviously sort of decreased a lot lately. Do you have any special tips on sort of practical things that parents could do to intervene and to prevent their very young children from consuming that?
Very good question. I teach what's called in the United States cognitive development theory and media literacy. And each child goes through a stages of development, just like growing up, just like getting your beard, just like whatever or getting, going through puberty. So at each stage, the child has to be dealt with differently. In the first 7 years, the children should use very little media. And I can give you a lot of studies on that, but it would take a long time. They should be freed from media. They should be playing outside. They should be in time with their parents. It's hard when both parents are working. They've got to develop a natural, healthy family and friendships in the first 7 years. Then in the next stage is when they start becoming isolationist. We go through each stage in my book, The Media-Wise Family and the Culture-Wise Family, and how you deal with the children at those stages. They're simple answers, but you got to know the stage of development of the children.
Ja, nun, das ist ein sehr wichtiges Thema und diese Studien werden zusammengefasst in der sogenannten kognitiven Entwicklungstheorie. Und hier unterscheidet man zwischen verschiedenen Phasen. Das heißt, Kinder unter 7 Jahren sollten so wenig Medien konsumieren wie möglich, eher draußen spielen und aktiv sein. Und Kinder in dem darauf folgenden Alter sind dann schon eher darauf bedacht. Could you perhaps elaborate again on this sort of second phase, on 7 to 14?
Well, 7 to 14, the previous phase is called the imagination phase. And in the imagination stage, what they see is they think is real. So they become vulnerable to what they see. There's a person who used to lecture with me, who was head of the media departments at University of Wisconsin. And when she did her PhD, she gave the senior students a test to say, now this was a long time ago, had they ever been afraid of a movie? And over 90% said they were afraid of Jaws when they were little. They shouldn't have seen Jaws when they were little, but they did. And the consequence was that then when Wisconsin is in the middle of the continent of the United States, when they took their swimming test, they would think that a shark was going to come out and devour them. They had bad dreams, all of that. So they were too young to watch that movie because they didn't understand, just the nature, that it was fantasy. They didn't understand the limited nature. The next stage is what we call the concrete stage. Now they understand a lot of those things, but they want to, if they're pro-violence, they want to see more violence. If they're pro-pornography, they want to see more pornography. And they sneak and they do things behind their parents' back, and they want to form cliques, and they deny the validity of their parents. So at the concrete stage, that's a very vulnerable stage of development for women. And if we can talk in terms of men and women, I hope we can still, when they get into the self-reflection stage, which is their early teen years, they have self-esteem issues. They think that they don't look pretty enough. They don't look like a Hollywood star. And the studies, especially from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI and others, show that when women have self-esteem issues, they're more vulnerable. They let people do things to them that they shouldn't. So they become very vulnerable in those years. And you've got to teach them, of course, that God created them beautiful, that God created them healthy, that they don't need to do things that are bad to affirm who they are. I'm trying to be very simple, but it's not simple. It takes a while to understand.
Genau, also es gibt diese verschiedenen Phasen. Und die erste Phase ist die imaginative Phase. Dort glauben Kinder, dass das, was sie in Filmen sehen, die Realität ist. Zum Beispiel, wenn sie Haifische sehen, kriegen sie Angst, in einen Swimmingpool zu springen. Die nächste Phase ist die konkretere Phase, Dort, dort sind Kinder oft sehr anfällig für diese gefährlicheren Inhalte in Filmen. Das heißt, wenn es Pornografie ist, wollen sie immer mehr davon sehen. Wenn es Gewalt ist, wollen sie mehr davon sehen. Und hier gibt es auch Unterschiede zwischen Jungs und Mädchen. Das heißt, oft ist es bei Mädchen so, dass es gewisse Selbstzweifel geben kann, durch die Medien veranlasst. Und hier ist es wichtig, diesen betroffenen Mädchen Mut zu machen und zu erklären, dass sie diese Selbstzweifel nicht haben brauchen, sondern sich wohlfühlen können.
Richtig.
I should look at the watch. I
Yes,
can't.
genau.
I have to go down to a meeting. So
Okay, ja. Herzlichen Dank erstmal. Ich
Yeah,
hätte nur
thank you very much.
2 Minuten für die letzte Frage.
Okay, 2 minutes for the final question, and then we're done.
okay.
Ja, wir sehen, da ist sehr schwierig, Kinder zu erziehen. Dennoch geben die Ergebnisse in Deutschland von verschiedenen Umfragen, dass die jungen Leute immer noch an die Familie glauben.
Yeah, so we see that it's very difficult to raise children and to educate them, but we do see that people still believe in the construct of the family.
Also welche Tipps oder welche gute Sätze haben Sie für junge Leute, die eine Familie gründen wollen in diese schwierigen Zeiten?
So do you have any recommendations or things to say for young people who still want to raise their own family in these difficult times?
Well, we do a lot of things. One, we do a program with movies that'll improve your personal life, movies that'll improve your family, inspire you to a better family life, inspire you to a better civic life. So we do that. We show things that inspire you, movies that build your family, build movies. These are big Hollywood movies, not little tiny movies. And we show people how to do it, and why to do it, and when to do it. So we have the resources. We have a tremendous, they're not in German though. They're in English, and I apologize. But what we could do is in the future talk again and explore maybe one little aspect and then build up a repertoire for your site of answers to specific areas of problems, because I'd be happy to do that.
Ja, sagt, wir haben inspirierende Filme, die genau da ansetzen und helfen sollen. Das sind große Hollywood-Produktionen und nicht kleine Filme. Sie sind auf Englisch. Was man aber in Zukunft machen kann, ist vielleicht nochmal ein paar spezifische Themen ansprechen und zu diskutieren.
Dankeschön. Also wir sind ganz froh und dankbar, Dr. Baehr, dass Sie uns diese Zeit geschenkt haben und dass Sie uns so genau Einblicke gewähren lassen haben, wie es ist in Hollywood und mit der Filmindustrie und wie wichtig die Familie ist. Herzlichen Dank.
Thank you. We are very, very thankful for all the insights into the world of Hollywood, into the issues that families face, and we thank you for your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of interesting questions, good questions, and a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gottes Segen.
God bless.
God bless. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.